Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday evening edition of Star Talk. I'm Ken Eccles and we're happy to have you with us on the program tonight. Also happy to have with us Michael Jordan. Mr. Jordan, hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Michael Jordan is the Libertarian candidate for State Senate from these parts. Of course, we spoke with the Democratic candidate, Jen Mangrum, a few weeks ago, and tonight Michael Jordan, the Libertarian, is kind enough to give us an hour of his time, and we're happy to have you. Of course, the phone lines, the numbers are on the screen there, and the lines are open as usual, and the usual email address is up there, so you can phone in a question for Michael Jordan, or you can email a question, whichever suits you best. We have callers standing by now. Before we go to the phone, let's give you just a minute or two to explain to people who you are and what in the world is a libertarian, and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
take a minute.
I'm just a regular guy that decided to run for office because I got tired of seeing doctors, lawyers, and Indian chiefs running things and not making any progress. A libertarian usually are socially fiscally conservative, and we are socially liberal. We think government doesn't need to be in people's business, and we are supporting of local businesses and business in general. So,
Well, obviously the root of the word is liberty. I guess
Right.
that should tell us something.
yeah. So,
All right. Let's see who's on the phone, and maybe we have a question for you.
Okay.
Hi, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
I'm confused. Where you said you believe that government needs to stay out of people's lives?
yes,
Is that what you just said?
yes.
Well, isn't the Libertarian Party, which I support wholeheartedly, aren't they for more involvement in our lives? Like free college, free medical, blah, 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 all government programs?
No. I'd like to see.
That's what every Libertarian candidate I've ever heard, especially the presidential Libertarian candidates, are running on.
Well, let's see what this Libertarian candidate says about free college and all that.
I'd love to find a way to help people pay for college, but the fact of the matter is we can't bankrupt the government, and a lot of people don't need to go to a 4-year college. A lot of people would be happier getting degrees for 2 years and working on cars and things like that. But yeah, no, government should not be in our business. If it's your property, it should be your property. You should not have to jump through hoops to add an extension onto your house, as long as you're not bothering somebody else's house and somebody else's property.
Well, to get back to the caller's first point, let's clear this up. College education for everybody paid for 100% by the government. Is that something you support, a favor, or think is even think is feasible?
I don't think it's feasible.
All right.
I would like to see the bases come down where they're not having to cost an arm and a leg, and the banks are not making a killing off of college loans. Mm-hmm. And that's more dealing with big corporations, being when they deregularized it so that private industry could give out loans, which was Nixon did that, but then they turned around and Clinton turned around and quit watching it, and so there was no oversight.
All right, well, we're going to get into all that later. I just want to clear up the first point about what you favor and what you don't. And caller,
Right.
Apparently he does not favor government-funded college education for everybody.
Okay. My second point is, as far as the Libertarian, I think the Libertarian Party is doing damage to our country. And this is, hear me out.
Okay.
I think the Libertarian Party is solely responsible for Donald Trump because they split the Democratic vote. They took all the young people by feeding in, again, free health care, free college. We want this and this and this. This is what the Libertarian candidates for president were saying. Okay, you might be different, but that's what they said.
Excuse me, can I step in? Could you name that Libertarian candidate who was saying that?
Who? who's the only one that was running for president? There was three of them. Was it Johnson? What's his name?
Johnson was running as the Libertarian candidate, that's true, but the free health care and the free education was far more, and there were some things I liked about Bernie Sanders, but that was far more his platform than it would have been Governor Johnson's.
But you don't recognize Sanders as a libertarian?
No, he's a socialist.
And he doesn't claim to be a
He doesn't claim to be a libertarian.
But what's his name? Johnson, the one that got the most votes for libertarian. Was it Johnson Jackson? What was his name?
Johnson was the candidate.
Gary Johnson.
Gary Johnson was the candidate.
And they took a lot of votes off of the Democratic Party. I'm sorry. And I just think you're splitting something that doesn't need to be split. I think if you're a Democrat, which libertarians are a little bit left of Democrat,
All right, sir.
instead of abandoning the Democrat Party, fix it.
All right, well, I guess we've come to a place here where we'll agree to disagree. You and Mr. Johnson will on that, and I thank you very much for your call. Good to hear from you. Hi, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Ken. How you doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
I got two quick questions I want to ask your guest there. One of the questions is, do you think it should be legal for the public to own AR-15s, M16s, and AK-47s? And how much money, or have you taken any, or will you take any money from the NRA?
I have not taken any money from the NRA. I think that the Second Amendment is designed to protect all the other amendments. I don't think it has anything to do with hunting. I think the people that wrote it had just come out of an oppressive war with the government, and they wanted to make sure the citizens were protected. So as far as the ownership of an AR-15 or a AK-47, I don't have a problem with that. I would, however, like to be respectful. When someone comes up to you and says they have concerns about their child going to school, we need to at least address that as a valid concern and listen to them. Because if you stop listening to other people's concerns, you can't explain to them why you're worried about the government taking your guns.
So in other words, you're okay with the public, the regular public having AR-15s, M16s, and AK-47s. That's what you're saying, correct?
Yes. But I would like to see that we have more of an open dialogue with people that are concerned with how some guns are being used. And because you're not going to accomplish
Answer my
anything.
questions, and I appreciate your time.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you for your call, sir. Let's go over here. Well, we didn't go there quite yet. Well, now we will. Hi, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Ken.
Hi.
How you doing this evening?
Good, how are you?
I just wanted y'all hear anything about this guy turned his car over a hill and sprayed his seating around about 11 o'clock.
I'm sorry, sir, I don't know anything about that.
So he turned it over and caved the whole thing in. It's out around about 11 o'clock today.
Okay, sir, well, I don't know anything about that. If I can find out something about that, we'll get it on the air. Thanks a lot for calling.
If anybody calls in, I'll, like to know what was going on. But that might have where Phil Price lives, out at the canal.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir, thank you. Thank you very much. Michael Jordan, Libertarian candidate for state senate, is with us on Star Talk tonight. And if you have questions for him, you can call us at those phone numbers, or you can also email in a question, as somebody has done. So let me understand. Your view of the Second Amendment is that it was designed to arm the citizens so that the citizens could protect themselves from the government. Is that your view?
Yeah. I hope I never see it. I hope it never happens that comes to pass. But I do believe that's why the law was created in the first place.
All right. Okay, that's good then. Here is another question. What is your position on the right to abortions?
I am a pro-choice person, but I hope that choice is life. I don't see that that's the government's opinion. In fact, the life at conception wasn't even considered by the Catholic Church until 1869. That's after the Civil War. It's only been the last 150 years that has become a rallying point. So I think when they came up with Roe versus Wade and so forth. They were desperately looking for a compromise for all the different states. So, and that's my opinion on it.
So as far as you see it, Roe versus Wade was correctly decided.
I think it was the best they could come up with a bad situation. So, I'm not saying you can't ever relook at it. I'm just saying I haven't heard any better suggestions. If
Yes.
something, if Roe versus Wade is overturned at the federal level, which is a possibility now with the new Supreme Court justices coming into be, it does not make abortion illegal. It simply turns it back to each state to make that decision.
Right.
So,
So is that one of the things that you, as a libertarian, think the government should stay out of?
that is, yeah, for the most part, I think that's something. There's a certain amount of decency involved with when it used to be when life was determined to be happening when the child was felt to kick in its mother's womb. So with all the different variations, I would leave that up to a scientist and doctors, which I'm neither of those.
Okay.
So,
Let's go back to the phone. Hi, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, hi, gentlemen. I just was wondering about the other candidate that's running against Phil Berger. If y'all have any similarities on your ideas and thoughts, and if so, don't you think it'd be best if only one ran against Phil Berger instead of both of y'all sharing the votes to try to go against him?
Well, here we are back to that again.
me and Dr. Mangrum both agree that education needs to be fixed. I'm not quite sure what her solutions would be on that, other than paying teachers more, which even Senator Berger has agreed to pay more in the next coming up budget. I'd like to see the discontinuing of school testing on standardized tests every year repeatedly or multiple times in a year. I think that is a waste of taxpayer money to pay for all those tests. I think it is, I'd like to see where teachers are allowed to teach as opposed to having to follow a program that's presented to them by the state at that level. Let teachers adjust to how their students are. That's the closest thing that me and Dr. Mangrum agree on. I think her and Senator Berger both agree that they want to entice large corporations to build factories and so forth within the community. And I'm for trying to take what money we do have and help small businesses build up and build from the bottom up, build people around here, because those people aren't going to be as quick to move.
But do you see where Phil Berger has his seat, that the ones that's for him is going to vote for him, the ones that's against him, y'all going to share those votes to try to overthrow him?
I don't know, because I know a lot of people, I've run into a lot of voters that are Republicans that can't seem to bring themselves to vote Democrat, but are still not fans of Phil Berger. And independents that are the same way.
One other thing. What's your view or thoughts about what's going on here in Rockingham County at the Wentworth Courthouse, where their district attorney and the gentleman's getting released from prison and everything? And good luck on your campaign.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Sir. Obviously, we've had some things happen out at the courthouse.
Right.
Your thoughts on any of that?
I haven't been following it that much. If I'm not mistaken, he's talking about because the overturned with the new district attorney. I do believe that there'll be new trials, and as far as I can tell, Mr. Ramey is a good lawyer and a decent person, and I don't think he's going to let criminals just walk our streets haphazardly and just give them a free walk. They might be out now, but that doesn't mean they're going to stay that way.
We need to take a break, and then we'll be back with Michael Jordan, Libertarian candidate for the state Senate. Welcome back to Star Talk. I'm Ken Eccles, and with us tonight is a state Senate candidate on the Libertarian ticket Michael Jordan. And we have callers standing by and a couple of email questions. If you'd like to call in a question, there are the numbers. If you'd like to email a question, send us an email. But let's not keep this caller waiting any longer right now. Hi, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hey, Mr. Jordan, Mr. Ken, thank y'all for doing this. Mr. Jordan, thank you for getting on the air. I just wanted to call in and empower you a little bit because I heard people calling in and being negative about a third party, and it'll take a vote from a Democrat or take a vote for whoever. People need more choice, and I think a lot of people believe that the two-party political monopoly is a source of a lot of the problems to begin with. And I just wanted to encourage you, and then also ask what motivated you to do this, to put your face out. Have you ever you've done this before? You know, what motivates you to do it?
I have some free time. I volunteered at the schools. Particularly, I was volunteering at Moorhead for their theater department, and I'd help build sets and things like that. I saw how much teachers were struggling, and I ran for school board, and I went to a lot of the meetings. Well, I didn't have a budget, so I came up a little short on that. But going to all those meetings, I said, and I don't agree with everything the school board was doing, but the real trouble was not there. The real trouble was at the state level. We rank, I think, 40th out of 50 states. And I was like, somebody needs to step up and try to fix this. Oddly enough, Dr. Mangrum had the same idea. So, but I don't honestly know that a Democrat can be elected around here. And I know there are plenty of independents around here that are tired of things. So I decided to run. So
there are actually more registered Democrats in Rockingham County than there are Republicans, and there are just as many registered unaffiliated voters around here as there are Republican voters. So it's not as conservative as people believe it is. You know, it's whether or not the Democrats can be motivated to go to the polls, because it seems like, I guess, the Republicans do make it to the polls. But real quick, what separates you from a Democrat? Why didn't you run as a Democrat? Why did you run as a Libertarian?
Well, I think partially because the two big parties kind of control their candidates. And I feel like if you run as either one of them, you're tied into their philosophy. And I found philosophies on both sides. There are things I like about the Republican Party. There were things I liked about the Democratic Party. And the fact is, being a libertarian covered most of those bases for me. And I didn't see why I should run as a party when I found another party that I actually agreed with more, even though that party is not as popular as the two big parties.
Sir, thank you for your call.
Thanks a lot.
Good
Thank
to
you.
talk to you. Michael Jordan, a Libertarian candidate for State Senate. Here is an email question that says, you said that the government needs to be doing something to promote small business and to help small business hire more people. Can you say specifically what the government ought to be doing for small business?
I know that if you get a regulation, for example, a regulation comes down that's going to determine the bathrooms need to be an extra 4 inches. To some place like Walmart, that is not a burden. But to a local small business, that is a huge expense. And that, I mean, that's just an example. But there ought to be a way to help small businesses or give some forgiveness to small businesses, because they can't make those adjustments nearly as quickly as a big business can.
So some process by which small businesses of a certain size with a certain amount of revenue might be exempt from regulations that affect larger businesses?
Or at least give them a little bit of help in how long it takes them to make those same accommodations.
All right.
So.
Well, how about, what about regulation in general? If we're talking about a 4-inch bathroom, should that be something the government is even telling to Walmart?
Not necessarily. I understand that you want to have bathrooms that fit your, be able to have people that can use handicapped and so forth. Sure. You're not trying to discriminate anybody. But yeah, the less we have regulation-wise, the better it is for the government, I think. A better business for business. And the less government is involved in certain things, the better off we are.
Let's go back to the phone. Hi, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I would agree with you that I don't want the government involved in everything either. Like I was going to put a building on my land, and then I had to go get all these permits and stuff. I don't agree with that. But what I would like to see is for a candidate to come on down and express your views, what you believe. If you believe something, say you believe it. Be transparent. Run on what you believe. Let me be the judge of, are you being truthful, or are you just pulling my leg or something? See what I'm saying? And as far as just transparent, just being honest and say what you mean and mean what you say and tell us the truth and be transparent. That's what I'd like to see in government, and I don't see it at all nowhere.
Oh, he's actually right. I mean, it is, and I think part of it is people are terrified to get rejected. Oh, what if they don't like what I say? But the fact of the matter is, if you agree with 60% of what I say and you believe 100% of it, I probably have a better chance of getting your vote than somebody that tells you everything you want to hear and you don't believe any of it. So I don't expect anybody to walk out of this, watch this show tonight and say, oh, I'm 100% behind him. But I would like you to think he's being honest and he's telling me what he believes, and most of the time he makes sense.
Sir, do you have a question for him before you go?
Yes, and about this school, they talking about how low that the teacher's salary is in North Carolina. Well, that might be true, but you got to consider other things. The cost of living in North Carolina, if you take that into consideration, that would raise our state's teacher's salary up substantially, I believe, depending on the cost of living, see? So anyway, thanks for your time, and I wish you luck.
Well, thank you, sir.
We appreciate your call, sir. Good to hear from you.
He makes a valid point about the cost of living, and if you got rid of all these testing that we're paying arm and leg for, and I think if you let teachers teach. Nobody goes into the profession of teaching saying, I'm going to become a millionaire. I mean, you maybe an accountant, maybe a lawyer, but you don't go into that because you love it. If you let them teach and actually educate people the way they imagine their classes being and actually let them help people, I think if their job wasn't you weren't so restricted and let them enjoy what they're doing, which is what they had planned on doing in the first place, you'd have a lot less disgruntled employees.
Now, the General Assembly in this past session did commit to, not only commit to it, I think the General Assembly actually made some adjustments in the amount of testing that is required in the public schools now. And obviously they didn't eliminate it.
Right.
But they did reduce the amount of required testing. Do you think, what do you think of what they did? Is it going to be effective? Is it just a step in the right direction?
I think it's just a step in the right direction. I don't think it's enough. And after 40 years, or not 40 years, we're number 40th. And after Senator Berger's been in there for 18 years, it's a little late for us to see movement on that issue now. So.
Okay.
That was my point on that.
There, the phone number is on the screen. You can call in your question, or you can email your question for Michael Jordan. He's Libertarian, running for the state Senate seat, currently occupied by Senator Phil Berger. This emailer says, what is your position on health care and specifically on expansion of Medicaid, which North Carolina did not do, but Virginia has now decided to go ahead and do?
I'm afraid we have to expand Medicaid. It is not a very popular idea, especially not with the Libertarian Party. And there are ways we could cut money from other things, like giving big corporations. We give Walmart a fortune at the federal level. They get subsidies. Healthcare is a huge mess, and it's going to have to be straightened out. I heard. It's not going to be easy.
Well,
it's that simple, and it's not going to be popular, which is one of the reasons I think when the Senate did their budget that they didn't let people look at it ahead of time and why they didn't debate it.
Well, I may not have understood your answer to the question about
Okay.
expanding Medicaid. Do you favor it or not?
Yes.
You do, you
I-
favor
I-
expanding Medicaid.
I would love to have another way, but I feel the insurance companies are falling short. And I feel that I was on looking at the affordable health care plans, and I was making, me and my wife at the time were bringing home like, I want to say $1,400 a month. And they wanted $800 of that for any plan that they offered. And that was an awful plan. That was like with a $5,000 deductible. It was atrocious. You're going to have people that have health care. I'd like the idea of actually, instead of paying insurance companies, why don't we send our money directly to the hospitals that are nearest us and build up money that way and cut out some of the middlemen in this?
So then you would take insurance companies out of the equation entirely?
Or reduce them to some extent. Insurance companies serve a valid purpose in the fact that they go to the hospital and say, I'll pay this, I'll pay that, I'll pay that. I'm not going to pay this third thing here. And the problem with people that don't have insurance is they don't have an advocate that says, we're only going to pay this much.
Well, now, you know, some people are going to hear that and say, hey, he's talking about single-payer, government-funded health care. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I just feel that a lot of the money is getting wasted in the insurance industry that could in healthcare, and it has been a disaster lately. And I'm willing to listen to ideas from both sides to come up with a solution, because there isn't a solution right now that I see.
Let's go back to the phone. Hi, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hey, Brother Ken, this is the Blues Man.
Hey, Blues Man, how are you?
I thought I'd give y'all a little entertainment break.
All right. Well, do you mind if we take a short musical interlude with the Blues Man?
No, that's fine.
All right.
I like blues.
Go right ahead.
This is for Mr. Eccles and Michael Jordan and Chance and all them rascals at the Star News, my friend. This is for Brother Ken and Michael Jordan too, and old Chase on that Star News. Now we're gonna sign off. Let you get back with your friends. Tell everybody you heard it from the one and only Blues Man. All righty, there you go, Mr. Chase.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Blues Man. Where else? What other TV station is going to bring you the Blues Man in the middle of a political candidate interview? I mean, you're just not going to see this anywhere else.
That's true.
We will take a break and be back right after these messages. Welcome back to Star Talk. I'm Ken Eccles with Michael Jordan, a Libertarian candidate for State Senate. And let's go back to the phone. Hi, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ken, Mr.
Hi.
Jordan. Hope you're having a fine day.
Thank you, sir.
And I would like to just ask, I heard on the news today where that Craig Blister, used to be a district attorney, and evidently from what I've seen, heard, and kind of gathered, he was a little on the corrupt side. And I'd like to ask Mr. Jordan and Mr. Ken, what do you think about these corrupt people? He was a voted servant of the county of Rockingham, and then he resigned and turned state evidence on his counterpart out of Person County, and I've seen where they reduced his sentences on Mickey Snow's bunch, and it's just so much corruption going on. And Mr. Jordan, this is a question that's kind of directed towards you. What would you do if you got voted in to help curb some of this corruption that goes on in our local authorities and district attorneys?
Well, sir, thank you very much for your call, and that certainly is a topic that's on a lot of people's minds.
It is
these
on a lot
days.
of people's mind, and sadly, I missed it because I was studying the questions that I might get for this, so I missed that in the news.
Well, I mean, it's not something that a state senator would directly oversee, but I think the larger question, it's a specific example of a larger issue, and that is government serving the people in the way that it should? Is government corrupt? Can we trust the government? If we can't trust the government, how do we change the government so that we can trust it?
Well, I think part of being a libertarian is trusting the government as we pare it down. There should be less regulations to start with and more transparency, which Star News is wonderful about because it is one of the few local channels that covers the local news. You still have big corporations that cover we know what happens in Washington and in New York because they have the big stations, but Star News is one of the few places around here that covers your local channels more. And that is far more needed to uncover corruption and so forth. So I commend y'all on that part. But yeah, less government means less corruption, hopefully. And I don't see why we need all these corporate sponsors. Companies like AT&T donating $5,000 or Duke Power to campaigns, to political candidates. Why don't we work off of how much the people vote as opposed to how much the companies, big corporations and PACs are giving voters?
Well, you've introduced another element here that goes along with what the last caller was asking about and what a caller earlier was saying about I want to vote for somebody I think is being honest and representing me,
right,
not representing somebody else. So clearly you think that money plays a negative role in all this. So do you curb, do you outlaw political contributions by corporations? What do you do about that? Of course, the Supreme Court's had something to say about that.
The Supreme Court has had things to say about it, and I don't necessarily always agree with that because they're saying that corporations are people too, and that's not true. You know, a corporation is an entity, and it's designed to make money, and they're going to give to candidates that are going to make them money. You know, people are people, and you need to be have people that are looking out for you. And I'm hoping in this campaign to show people that a person's vote is more powerful than their money. You know, I don't have the corporate sponsors, and a libertarian is not going to get one. It's they're not going to risk, and they're not going to throw money away on what they think is a third-party candidate, or what is a third-party candidate, because we don't have a track record yet of winning. And I was talking to Houston Barrows, who's running for the House as a libertarian, and he was like, well, nobody wants to give us any financial backing. And I said, wait till we win something, and then they'll all be like, we were behind you 100%, we just couldn't donate to you. That's going to happen. And no, I think the reason, I'm thrilled we have 5 parties now. We actually have not just libertarians, we have the Greens and the Constitutionalists in the state as well. And I think that the less monopoly the two-party system has, the less money that's coming in from corporations. And I'm always slightly suspicious when a bill is introduced from a powerful Republican or Democrat. I always sadly think, hey, who sponsored that? Who's paying them to come up with that idea? So, yeah, I'd like to see less corporation involvement in the government.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes. What is your stance on having the U.S. motto, "In God We Trust," put back into the schools?
All right, ma'am. Thank you for that question.
I don't have a problem with it. It is, I want to say it was in the 50s that they added that when they were concerned about Russia and China and communism and so forth. There is a wonderful piece on YouTube by Red Skelton, and he does the Pledge of Allegiance, and he explains step by step what it stands for word for word, and he ends it up with that in his lifetime, since he was saying it, they'd added 2 states and 2 words. So the fact is, isn't it a shame that people consider that a prayer?
Well,
We just want that to be, we want life better.
Well, you touched earlier on your view of what the right to bear arms means. What about the separation of church and state, which somebody will point out to us what we already know, that phrase does not appear in the Constitution. But what is the proper role of religion as far as government is concerned, and government as far as religion is concerned? How wide a separation do you think there ought to be?
I think religion teaches people how to live their lives in a community. I don't think they need to be involved in the government aspect of it. Jimmy Carter used to say that he felt it was his religious duty to run for office. If you are out there and you believe you're helping people and you choose to do it through a political means, that's fine. But I think that government has its duty within the day-to-day life, and that church should be dealing with the spiritual and souls, and they shouldn't necessarily have to touch.
We will take a break and be back right after these messages. Welcome back to Star Talk. I'm Ken Eccles with Michael Jordan. He is the Libertarian candidate for the state Senate seat, currently held by Senator Phil Berger. And here's an email question for you. And it says, we read in the paper every day about how Amazon might build a new headquarters here, and they're trying to get Apple in here and all this other stuff. My question is, do you think the state ought to provide incentives, which we read as money, to companies to get them to come to North Carolina? And of course, it would be taxpayers' money. What is your opinion?
It may not be popular, but I don't think so. I think that money would be better spent within our communities if we built the community up. These people want to come to a place where they believe in the community. And they're going to, if they build Amazon, they're going to be outside of Raleigh-Durham. So they're going to look at it and say, this is a wonderful community to start with. So if we want something like that around here, we need to build our basic communities up where we're a better place and we have more things for people to do and more things for teenagers to do. And then I think people would be considering whether or not they want to move here.
Suppose you're sitting in the General Assembly,
Okay.
or suppose you become governor. Oh, we can suppose anything.
We can suppose anything.
And Amazon walks in to the legislature or whatever office you're sitting in Raleigh and says, now listen, Mr. Jordan, if we come here, we're going to invest $2, $8, $10, $12 billion. We're going to create 50,000 jobs for your constituents to work and to make good money, and we're going to pay all these tax money now from us. It's going to be a windfall for the state of North Carolina. All you have to do is agree to give us $1 billion up front, and you've got us. You would not see that as a good deal?
I could see that as a good deal, but I need to know that's helping everybody. Because right now, I see Amazon coming to Raleigh-Durham as going to be a great windfall if you live in Raleigh and Durham. But I don't see that helping the rest of the state. And if I can be convinced that I get to lower taxes for everybody in the state because you've come into the area, then that might be different. But it's got to help the state, and I'm being elected to represent Rockingham, Caswell, Stokes, part of Surrey. So I need to know that it's going to help this area.
Well, and you've opened another door there. And we know if we look at growth patterns in North Carolina, economic growth patterns, we see enormous growth in the Triangle, Raleigh, Durham.
Right.
Enormous growth in Charlotte.
Right.
Not enormous, but decent growth in the Triad, a little better than
Right.
it has been before. The point being, if you look on the map, you're going to see some small geographic areas where the economy is going great guns.
Great.
And then you're going to see vast number, 75, 80 counties where the economy is growing slowly, and some of those counties not growing at all. What needs to be done to spread that wealth around?
Well, one, I think investing, as I've said, into local businesses. Two, I would like to see investment into the hemp industry. There are medicinal oils, there are things that you can make for fabrics, things that you can make for clothing and parts to build houses with and so forth. There's a lot of things that can be used with that, and it's a quick turnover crop, and Mitch McConnell suggested legalizing it the other day as the Speaker of the House in the state. So I think there are ways for us to help the agricultural community as well, and I think if we help the local townships and create a booming business within those communities, we would be better off.
I have heard and read, and I'm sure you have too, and I have no idea if it's true or not, that marijuana is North Carolina's #1 cash crop. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know it's a pretty large scale crop in North Carolina. And I believe the state actually has enacted a marijuana tax, which they don't collect very often. But would you be in favor of legalizing? Now, of course, and hemp and marijuana are two different things.
Right,
Let's not add to the public
Right,
confusion.
right.
Hemp is not marijuana. Marijuana is not hemp. But now
They resemble each other.
Let's talk about.
But no, they're not the same
marijuana.
thing.
Would you legalize it as far as allowing people to grow it and sell it and pay taxes to the state on it?
If someone else sponsored the bill, like the confusion with Gary Johnson, I think that as a libertarian, and we have such a history dealing with legalizing marijuana, that if I tried to sponsor something like that, it would not be, it wouldn't be considered a real bill. If someone else put their name on it and it went up for a vote, and I don't think marijuana has ever been legalized by a vote from the Senate and the House. I think it always goes to a ballot unless the voters decide. If I remember correctly on the incidences, because there's
I think you're right.
too many politicians are too afraid to put their name on it, to be honest, to be known as, that person's a pothead. Now, at some point in time, I've heard the argument that if Virginia legalizes it before us, people are going to drive up there and buy it or something like that. And I've heard arguments that it would help the community because, in all fairness, I think agriculturally it would replace tobacco as far as what kind of finances you're bringing in. But I don't think I should be the person to be pushing that issue.
All right. Would you support or introduce a bill to put it out as a public referendum, let the voters decide, put it before the voters?
Again, I don't think I should be the person.
Okay.
If I was elected, I don't think I would be the person because of the history the Libertarian Party has. I don't think it would be taken seriously.
All right. Well, then, am I correct if I say if you're in the General Assembly and a Democrat or a Republican introduces the bill, you would sign on to it?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've cleared that up. And we are just about out of time. In fact, we only got about a minute left. I'm going to give you the minute, if you would like, to touch on anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to talk about.
Well, something that didn't come up, and I was a little surprised, was that, you know, they're talking about building a pipeline through Rockingham County.
The MVP.
Right. And that's worrying me, because they just had an explosion in West Virginia last month with the exact same type of pipeline. And libertarians are all about personal freedom, and your property is your property, and the idea of someone using eminent domain to come in and take your property is absolutely what we stand against. Also, I don't see a financial side to it. I mean, they're talking about bringing part-time jobs for a little while and then leaving. And they're talking about digging under the Dan River, which I think the Dan River suffered enough from the coal ash spill. And the last things that bother me is that it is the people that are doing the surveying for this company are not licensed to do it in North Carolina. Now, I'm sure that the hills in Virginia and the hills in North Carolina aren't that different. But if you're cutting corners now before you even laid any pipe, what corners are they going to cut later on when actually you're putting explosives in the ground? And the fact that it's an LLC. It's two other companies that have started this corporation just to run this section of pipeline, and it literally says in the title, limited liability company. If something goes wrong, they can wash their hands and walk away, and we're left holding the bag, and that scares me a lot.
And that is where we will leave it. Michael Jordan is a Libertarian candidate. He is running for state senate, and thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me on your show.
And thank you for watching. Star Talk will be back Monday evening at 7 p.m. Hope you'll join us then. I'm Ken Echols.